Hello, this is Ashee from Crafting with Ashee and welcome to this Christmas crafting tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at the difference between wet and dry embossing, and this is the gorgeous card we're going to be making. As you can see, isn't it beautiful? Now I've used heat embossing for my image, and then I've used dry embossing in the background, and my image is actually watercoloured without ink pads. So you're getting three techniques in one video, so getting good bang for your buck today. Right, so let's start off with some heat embossing, and we're going to be using this image here from the Christmas Greenery Stamp set. And I used the main image as I showed you before, and then I'm going to use this other one here today. And I love these outline images, they really do help. Now when you're watercolouring, it's always good to, well, one of the tricks I use is to heat emboss, because it helps you to watercolour and it helps the watercolour to stay within the lines of the heat embossing. So first I'm going to use my powder tool on my piece of basic white cardstock here. Well, not basic white, this is actually watercolour cardstock that I've got here, I should say. Fluid 100 watercolour cardstock. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my powder down, and then I'm going to stamp with Versamark ink. Now this is a sticky ink, and this will give something for the embossing powder to stick to. And because we put the powder down, it should only stick where we've got this Versamark ink. So I'm going to give that a good press down, moving everything in the process. And then I'm going to lift the lid of my stamping tool, and for luck I'm going to just give it a second ink up just to make sure I'm going to get a really nice crisp image. So I'm just going to give this a quick little ink up here. It's a detailed stamp set, so I want to make sure I capture all of those details, and then I'm going to give it a good press down again like that. Lovely. Okay, and now we're ready to take that out of a stamping tool, and then I'm going to use gold embossing powder today, and I'm going to work over a coffee filter. And you can see here I'm just going to sprinkle this all over the image very liberally. Doesn't matter how much you use, because you're only going to need a little bit, and the rest of it you're just going to tap off. Now I'm just trying to see where my image is because I can't remember, which is always clever, so I just had to take a good look at it to see where it is, and there it is. It comes to life when all the powder is stuck to it. So you can see here where the embossing powder is stuck with. I didn't use the powder tool, but where I did, you can see it's perfect. Give it a little tap at the background. Now I'm just going to try and decant this back into my little tub, and I have a few little tins of embossing powder in here. I just find these are easy to use. So there we go. And if you do get any embossing powder on your work stand, I just use a small little tabletop hoover, and it's brilliant at getting rid of any bits of powder. Now I'm just using a tiny, very fine paintbrush, and I'm just flicking off powder if it's anywhere where I don't want it to be. And this is a really good technique, so do this before you heat emboss. Obviously after you've done that, you're not going to be able to change anything, but it'll be permanent. But if you do it before, it works really well. Right, that's our image all ready to be heat embossed. So let's get rid of the stamping tool. I'm going to move my paper because I don't want it to warp. Now all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my heat tool. I'm going to count about 30 seconds or a little bit more so it gets good and hot before I take it to my actual image. And the reason I'm going to do that is that this reduces the time where it can actually warp the paper, because it can sometimes warp the paper. If it does, just take your heat tool underneath, as you can see me doing here at times, and it will help to stop that. But if you get the heat tool really nice and hot before you bring it to the paper, you reduce the chances of it warping. And you'll know when it's done because the dull powder will change to a lovely metallic gold, as you can see here. Right, so we're ready to do a little bit of not heat embossing, watercolouring. And I'm going to put a little bit of water down on my craft mat here, and I'm just going to pick up some ink with my water painter from the lids of the ink pad, and I'm just going to go around here, and I'm just going to put down the colour. watercolouring is very forgiving, so if you make a mess, as you saw me there do, you can usually soak it back up. And all I'm going to do is put down some colour. The more water you put in, the less vivid the colour will be, but you can use that to your advantage, so you can get light and shade by doing that. And you can see here, because I've heat embossed, it does help to keep this watercolour confined to the image. It acts like a little barrier and stops the paint seeping out, or the ink rather, in this case, seeping out. So I'm just putting red where I want it to go. And sometimes what I will do is, if I'm finished with an area, or not finished with an area, but I feel I want to add more, but I'm going to wait before I'll start again. Instead of getting oversaturated, I will leave it and then come back to it, which, as you can see what I've done here, it dries really quickly. And I'm just going to build up that colour, and then you can see how I have a little cloth as well that I use to wipe off my ink rather. So I've done that, and now I'm just clean my brush in that water that's there, and then put some clean water down, and I'm opening up this one. This, I think, if I remember rightly, was Shaded Spruce, but all the supply list will be listed and linked in the description box below, and you can also find it on my blog, and the link to that is in the description box below as well. So here we are, we're just adding some green, and I'm just taking my time with this. I find watercolouring incredibly therapeutic. I love to do it. I could just spend hours sitting there colouring in it. I find it really therapeutic. You just get involved in the way the colour's moving, and sometimes you don't know when to stop as you're trying to add light and shade, and just enjoying the process more even than worrying about the outcome. And I think that's something that's really good, especially if you're stressed out. It's lovely just to sit there and enjoy the process without worrying about the outcome. Just enjoy the process of watercolouring. And as you can see, it's really easy to do. It's forgiving, and it's a lot of, well, I think it's a lot of fun, and I hope you do too. So there we have a little image, and we've set that to dry, and then we've cut it out using the matching dies. And you can see here I'm showing you the matching dies, so they were cut out using those. Now we've done some dry embossing, and this is an embossing folder, and I put my piece of basic white cardstock in that folder, and I fed it through my die cutting machine with the appropriate plates, and it leaves a lovely raised image on the paper, and this just gives a little bit of interest in the background where there's no other focal image. So now here is our card base, and it's Shaded Spruce. It's a standard A6 card base. That's an A4 sheet cut in half and then folded in half. And I put a piece of basic white on the inside, and I'm putting on the outside that piece of basic white that we heat embossed. And it has a beautiful little frame, this dry embossed rather, and it has a beautiful little frame. And in the inside of the frame, we're going to put our lovely little focal image. And I'm just going to use some dimensionals here. I'm going to use a mixture of normal dimensionals and mini dimensionals, and I am quite generous with my dimensionals, especially on this piece here, because it's had a lot, that paper's had to put up with a lot. It's been heat embossed, and it's putting up with watercolour as well, so I don't want to be there to be any chance of it trying to lift up. So I'm putting down quite a few of my dimensionals, but of course you put down whatever you want to do. It's really up to you. Right, so that is all done. Give it a bit of a press down. All adhesive is pressure sensitive, and therefore if you give it a bit of a press down, it's going to stick better, and in this case it's just going to help me get those pesky backings off the back. It's one of the banes of my life, I think, is taking backings off foam adhesive, but I love the look of it, so it's one of those necessary evils that we go through. And of course I can't tell if I've taken the backing off something or not, so the only way I can tell is by sticking my fingers in the glue. Well, there you go. Right, let's stick that down. Lovely jubbly. Now we're going to do a little bit of embellishment. We need to get what shall I call it, a sentiment, and for that I'm going to use one of our ephemera packs. And this is the Greetings for You or Greetings to You, something like that, ephemera pack. And the beauty of this one is that it has lots of this lovely gold foiling, which really just matches in with this beautiful heat embossing that we've done that's also gold, and I'm deciding whether I want my sentiment to be, and I'm thinking, yeah, Season's Greetings works. Lovely. And this isn't just an ephemera pack, these are actually cardstock stickers, so I can just take the backing off and stick that down. Really, really simple. And then finishing touches, we're going to use some gems, and these are the traditional sequins, I think. Again, it'll be listed and linked below, and I love all the colours here. I'm just putting a few of these little red ones down, not too many, just a few here and there. I tend to work in uneven numbers because I think it looks better. So there you go. So that's the card we just made. That's the one I did earlier. As you can see here, it has both dry embossing, heat embossing, and watercolouring, and 3 lovely techniques that work together to produce a really beautiful Christmas card. So thank you for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd be grateful if you could give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you again, and until next time, enjoy being creative. Bye.